Ladies and gentlemen, we now present to you the latest member of the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame. And arguably Sportswire Radio, from our humble beginnings, he has been one of the most important people that we've had here and continuing to contribute for us here. As for over 10 years, he has been considered the Bible for Mets fans, Miners fans, for his hard hitting intel that you see all throughout, especially social media, Twitter, Facebook, his YouTube videos, plus many other sites he's been credited on, including the Max Mets website, where he has been a staple for nearly 10 years alone. He is also the host of the Mets Minor League Report, where yours truly has had the honor to interview countless interviews with minor leaguers and even a few people that made it to the show in the big leagues, including our old friend Steven Nagosic and a World Series champion you might have even heard of, named Art Shamsky. This man has also been an accredited member of the media, covering the St. Lucie Mets. He's even had intel on some guys. If you're a Mets fan, you probably know, Pete Alonso, when he played here, Michael Conforto, and other guys that you've seen like Dom Smith come up through here, and David Peterson still with the roster. It's a long list of players in Citi Field you probably know a thing or two about because of our guest, who certainly earned his introduction the minute that he became a part of the Sportswire radio team. And by the way, he even got a picture with some guy named Steve Cohen who knew a little bit about our guest. And that's exactly why he is a Hall of Famer. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to congratulate our sixth member of the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame and the first of our own from Sportswire Radio, who was with us in those, as I said, humble beginnings, from Sports Report to Sportnarium, and to now where we're Sportswire Radio, the number one global radio station. So it is my honor now to induct, as I stated, the sixth member of the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame, Mr. Ernest Dove. Now, Ernest, before we say thank you and introduce you, I have to give you that introduction that so many here of Sportswire Radio get day after day after day, and the first five people that have been inducted into the Hall of Fame have gotten. I know it's been a while since you've been here, so just stay tuned, and while I do the magic that everybody else gets. So with that, without further ado here on the Sports Report, number one global sports show, the newest member of the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame, host of the Mets Minor League Report, an accredited member of the media who covers the St. Lucie Mets. We call him the Congratulations, my friend.
Thank you so much, man. Wow. And I don't even know what to do. Do I sing? Do I grab a microphone? Do I dance? Where's my coat, man? Do we get a red jacket? Or
well, it's funny you said that, and I want to get to people. A lot of people obviously are tuned into this. I want to thank everybody. It's been a long time since you've actually been on the show. Obviously, the last interview we heard from you on Sportswire was with David Griffin, but it's been a while since you've actually been here live with us. But yeah, I've been asked. Justin Parsley, who was the third member of the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame, he wanted a ring. We had, I think, RPD, the natural born fighter, RP Davis, the first one here. He wanted basically like, I guess it would be an award. He wanted a trophy. I mean, I'm getting basically all types of requests for different things. Some people have said, "Do we get paid for this?" Some people have said, "Do we get bomber jackets?" Apparently, that's what
No.
Dean Allmark and my good buddy Luke Leyland, who's not yet in the Hall of Fame, but that's what he wants. So it's we're running down the gauntlet in terms of requests. But what I will say for those that are listening and watching, we actually have given out certificates. And I believe you have actually received a certificate showing that you were an official member of the Sportswear Radio Hall of Fame. So we are working on different things. And I also think that we've also did a press release on your behalf. So, but congratulations, though.
Thank God. Don't worry, man. I'm low maintenance. I've been on the grind since 2013 doing this.
But that's why I know we're going to get into a lot of stuff with the Mets president and obviously in the minors. And I have comments and I want to let people hang on tight. But this is why I wanted to induct you. I know obviously a lot of people are going to look at the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame. They're going to see most likely college coaches. They're going to wind up seeing, let's say, professional wrestlers, underground wrestlers. Maybe you're going to see an occasional athlete or two here and there. But I think that in a lot of ways, you're more important than some of those different people because of what you've done over the past decade in covering countless player after player, guys that have gotten the call to the show, guys here that have gone on and done a lot of great things, people that we've actually interviewed together. I think about Art Shamsky and Stephen Nagosi, although personally Art Shamsky was not one of my favorite interviews. I have to be honest. I'll be honest, I hope he never comes back to Sports Radio, but he still is Art Shamsky. But the fact is, we did 2 major league interviews together where guys that made it and guys who obviously had great success in Art Shamsky. I won't take that away from him, but you've really been the Bible for countless Met fans, countless prospect huggers, whatever you want to call them. And, you have been the definition of really somebody to me that has given those that would not have gotten the recognition, that opportunity. And again, I think about guys like Dom Smith, Michael Conforto. I think about guys like Pete Alonso. You were one of the first people that kind of discovered them. And that's why, to me, you are a Hall of Famer, sir.
Thank you. I know. I've been on this for a long time. So I've said it a few times over the years that back in 2013 in the spring, I was kind of homeless of sorts. So I kind of got into the blogging thing on Max Mets.
We're going to plug in a few minutes. I have the blog up for that, sure.
While technically not having a home, I was in between in transition. So it's been a long ride, a long journey, but it's been exciting, man. I'm glad to have settled down my little roots here in South Florida, not too far away from St. Lucie for the complex and the minor league team. So, hey, man, I'm here. I'm proud to be part of Sportswire Radio. And I know I was kind of leaving the Beatles of sorts, kind of getting into my own show with the Mets minor league report, interviewing a lot of players, a few coaches.
Yeah, you've done, Mike Facile. We're going to talk about him in a few minutes. I mean, obviously, you're going to certainly bring up for sure David Griffin. This the actual last interview you've done on sportswireradio.org, but you've done, on your own over the past year. Tony DeBrell, when he was here at the Mets, you've interviewed him a couple times. Stephen DeLines, our old friend, who and obviously we wish you all the best of. But I mean, you've done a lot of them on your own, and I think that in a lot of ways you've been extremely important to the channel and to the page. I mean, like I said, when we first connected, we were starting out on Skype. Then we basically moved to these telephone interviews that were basically kind of I was doing the editing, but they sounded muffled. We were in COVID. We were trying to just, stay relevant. Then we moved to Sportnarium, which, we had some success on Sportnarium. They definitely helped us grow. They helped us, keep us alive and certainly grow the base. But now we've finally, moved over to Sportswire Radio, where I actually even have another logo, which you're going to unveil, not tonight, but definitely in the coming days. So we've done a lot, and you've been a part of that success, and to be able for us to kind of go to these places that we've gone. And I think that, you took a leap of faith on coming here. And, back when I was just about to interview Glendon Rush and John Jackson, my old, friend used to come on here. You came on right in the middle of that time. And to me, you were an important part of the channel when we were just covering more regular sports. Obviously, Sportswire is basically morphed into, we do the Friday night shows where we do our coverage of our regular sports. But, for those that are here the first time, we basically morphed into a podcast to where we, cover internet radio things, basically talking about a lot of wrestling. I mean, wrestling has obviously been the bread and butter to keep us really growing. But also, we still do the college athletics, but you were an important part of coming onto the channel which led us to where we are here. So that's why, to me, I think it was important to recognize you early on as a Hall of Famer, but also the first from the group that have been here from the beginning, like a Billy McInerney and Rob Morosco. We hope feels better, and he's dealing with COVID. We hope Rob feels, but certainly hangs in there. And Brad Weiss, the brute force. You were one of the first people to give us a shot, and that's why I wanted to induct you now before you become like number 28 or something like that.
It's all good, man. See, I'm at the higher end of the pecking order. I'll take
exactly. That's why I wanted you like 6th or 7th.
Ah,
if I had you 28th or 29th, it'd be like at that point people are going to forget the names. If I get you now, and I think it means more.
We got to retire the jersey like the Yankees. You got to retire the number 6, I guess, in my honor. Just without even a jersey, we'll just retire it anyway.
Well, listen, we've done certificates, so I'm working on it. I mean, obviously, one of my guests to be inducted in the Hall of Fame, Saturday Night Soldier GP, who's the IMF World Champion, also wants to congratulate you, and I'm going to certainly have a big ceremony for him, and we'll give him a certificate in a few days. But I'm working on it. I mean, we're working on I think the certificates were cool. My first lady of Sportswire Radio appreciated the interest. She loved it, but obviously, I'm going to get to comments in a second. I want to plug you as well. I'm going to put the banner up in a second where we can find you on different social media platforms. But I'll come into the minors in a second. But I have to ask you at the top for obviously the Met fans coming in. And I want to thank Metsy1986 for also sharing our thing on Twitter. He's been a big supporter of ours on Sportswire. But what do you make of this Met offseason? Because the Mets struck out on Ohtani. I don't think anybody really thought they were getting Ohtani. Yamamoto, I mean, Steve Cohen really made that, your good friend, Steve Cohen, you made a really big push for him. But so far, we've come up really, I guess, other than that trade with the Brewers, what have the Mets really done aside from Luis Severino? It's kind of been like the Wilpon days almost. I mean, what do you think so far this Met offseason?
Yeah, I know. I've kind of over the years, man, usually when you mature, you mature a certain way. I seem to go the opposite. In my mature years, post Steve Cohen, I've had this rosy red kind of glass half full mentality.
Well, you know him very well. You've obviously got to,
I got a bias. We have proof, ladies and gentlemen. If you want me to prove it, I could be petty or vain or somewhere in the middle. I can show the video where the man literally says, "I know who you are." No, I know I've been way positivity in the last 2-3 years. So I want to make sure I don't just do that on the show. I don't want to be here on this kind of important thing and then just talk about how great the Mets are. I know it's not been the offseason anybody wanted. But at the same time, I tried, like everyone, we follow online, all the reports, all the posts. David Stearns, they try to pick apart every word he has said since he took over. And it did seem like, we have to be honest, everybody, Stearns had these like implied quotes that were probably saying the Mets are not going to just sign a bunch of monster contracts. So y'all need to kind of be in the loop and understand what the structure is going to be in 2024. I know everybody's kind of screaming that means rebuild, but I don't know if it means rebuild. I think it means more of outside of, okay, the thing with Yamamoto, okay, well, Ernest, what are you even saying? You're saying they weren't going to sign a bunch of mega deals, and then they were trying to get Yamamoto. But the thing with Yamamoto, him and Ohtani are more than just a baseball player. We need to be realistic.
Oh, yeah. This is just selling a brand. You're selling something that's going to draw more than what the on-the-field product would be, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, beyond the jokes about Ohtani, but I can even get into that. The Dodgers are probably going to earn more than $70 million a year in marketing from having him in their organization. And
for sure.
If you sign a Yamamoto to 30, 40 mil, you're also probably getting $50 million a year from marketing and PR and everything in another country. So that makes sense. But I think it was implied before, during, and after. There's been a lot of beat writers that I respect a lot too, and they've been pointing out that, listen, the early post current reports are that the Mets are probably not signing the remaining quote unquote aces like Snell and Montgomery, which Montgomery was kind of a up and down SP3-4 guy. And now all of a sudden we got to give him $40 million a year to try to pry him away from other teams. I mean,
I think when it comes to what was out there, I mean, the Mets, I guess Severino, it's a 1-year deal, low risk, but why not even go after guys? I agree with you on Snell, and we've been talking a lot about that with the Talking Rivals co-host Chris Bizet, and obviously I'll have an announcement with Chris and Patrick at a later date because they might be joining you into this Hall of Fame. But I'm going to leave that at that. But I think Snell's only had 2 monster years. He walked 99 guys last year, so I'm a little bit hesitant about basically giving a contract to a guy that basically puts on 3 batters a game basically for free. But why not guys like our old friend Seth Lugo, who got really a low-risk 3-year deal with the Royals for $45 million, or even a guy like Michael Wacha, who had a pretty good year last year with the Padres, and they got basically multi-year low-risk deals. Isn't those the kind of pitchers that the Mets could have really got to really help a rotation to kind of pair with the Senga? And now you're talking about, let's say, Senga, Severino, and then pair them with even a Wacha or our old friend Lugo, who other than 1 year, I mean, we spoke a lot about him over these past 5 years, Ernest. I mean, Lugo really, in a lot of ways, was a godsend to this team. What do you say to those things? Because those, to me, would not break the budget, and they would probably have accomplished the things that this Met team wanted.
I mean, look, it's a two-way street, and I don't want to get into this weird poverty Mets. I'm tired of hearing it. It's very
so the Kansas City Royals actually spent the most money this offseason outside of the Dodgers, so there really is no poverty when it comes to the Mets. If the Royals spent like nine free agents this year, I mean, who would have guessed that? So the Mets can't be calling poverty. No way.
No, I just think that it's a two-way street. The team has to want the guy, and the guy wants to want the team. So I don't know about Seth Lugo. I don't know of any. My thing that I loved, and I'll always respect Seth Lugo, he put in his time. He was never ranked as a minor leaguer. He shined for like all 6 years that they used him up for every penny.
And that 2016, when he came up with Robert Gsellman, I mean, the Mets would not have made the playoffs if it wasn't for those two guys. They were godsends to that team.
But again, he did what was asked. And I know, like anything in New York media, they're going to keep pounding on certain things. Do you want to start? Do you want to start? He did. You know what? What's wrong with that? Dom Smith wanted to start. What an awful human being. Dom Smith is an angel that was brought into this world. The way he treats the community in the minor leagues to majors, it was ridiculous. And for Seth Lugo, I know he wanted to be a starter, but guess what? Publicly, I don't remember him saying anything negative. He did his time. He played where they told him he had to go for every second of his service time.
Yeah, he had they put him in so many spots. He was a setup man. He was a middleman. He was a closer. He was a long man. I mean, the Mets really put him in some really difficult spots. But my point was that there were names out there. Michael Wacha, the Mets could have took a feeler on. I mean, that would have been a nice move, getting low risk if you were really going to go bargain basement hunting.
Yeah, but you could probably say maybe Seth Lugo didn't want to have that reunion. Not for any true negativity towards the Mets, but hey, man, I believed in myself. I gambled on myself. I became a starter, and I hit a pretty high amount of innings. I mean, he didn't I think he got around 150, which is okay.
Hey, Glasnow got what he got only after 120 innings. So, I mean, at this point, you can't really say that,
He did well. And you know what? I don't know. Maybe he didn't want to be on the Mets. As far as Wacha, another guy, that's the thing with a guy like Severino. I don't want to be glass half full that he's going to rebound, but we're talking about guys like Montgomery getting a monster deal. Wacha's getting a multi-year deal. Where were they a couple of years ago? Like on and off. So you can't compare them because the results are what the results. We don't know what's going to happen in 2024, but we don't know. I don't know as well what the plan is for the Mets because, like I said, outside of Yamamoto, who's a brand, I don't know if they really want to sign anybody to multi-year deals at this point. And even with the Mets have no rotation. We could talk about this for an hour, but just because they don't have a rotation, it doesn't mean they want to have like Senga, Quintana, Severino, and then sign like 2 or 3 1-year guys? Or are they going to sign 2 or 3 5-year deal guys for $100 million each? Probably not.
Well, what's out there, I wouldn't do it anyway. I agree with you. We'll move on. I'll get to a lot of comments in a second. So people want to say hello to you. By the way, we are here with the 6th member now of the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame. He is an accredited member of the media who covers the St. Lucie Mets, and he is the host of the Mets Minor League Report, which you can catch on sportswireradio.org. He is none other than the Honorable Ernest Dove. Mr. Ernest Dove is now actually an honorable. We used to call him the Honorable MC Ernest Dove, but now he's just an honorable because he's a Hall of Famer now, because that's what a Hall of Famer is. You can catch him on Twitter at Ernest Dove, Instagram, Ernest.dove, YouTube Ernest stuff. Also, you can catch him on our friends over at maxmets.blogspot.com, on Twitter at John Mackin ADE. So thank you, Max Met. Max Met has always supported us here in Sportswire. I want to get to some comments here. I want to say hello to our buddy, Mr. No More Wilpons, who's been on here in the past. The Mets made a mistake not bringing back Lugo this offseason. That was my point. Mets should be all over Woodruff right now. 2-year deal to let him rehab and have him ready for 25. What do you say on that real quick before I get to some more comments?
I mean, you know what? It can't even be a comparison, but the Mets have recently tried this and it kind of flopped, but that wasn't the pedigree of a Woodruff. So I would make that kind of deal for sure. They tried it for a guy who was basically a reliever and it didn't really work out for the Mets. But to try it with a Woodruff, I like. I mean, I still like the idea of like stealing half the guys from the Brewers, but I mean, you know, again, taking Cohen's money, I wouldn't mind if they want to take a couple of guys off their hands, even like a Yelich, who no longer seems to have power, but he's still putting up.
Good. He had a good bounce back year the last. I think he was about 20 home runs, 20 stolen bases, just about 270 something batting average. I mean, he got on base still. I mean, certainly not the back-to-back near MVP years he had for sure. Yeah. He would have had the second MVP, but he missed. He got hurt that last week of the season. But you know, people are going to think about, what about Corbin Burns? Obviously, Burns, everybody's talking about that. I mean, I guess why not try for that? I mean, he's also, you're not going to be locked into him because he's walking after the year, right? So why not try that route maybe?
But that's the other thing, right? The two big things that have been implied, you know, in between the lines, or how you read Stearns or Cohen, it just seems like they don't really want to sign any other monster deals other than Yamamoto, and they don't seem to want to still trade prospects, which usually for me, I should be happy about that. But even I, at this point in 2023, going into 2024, this is finally the year, blasphemy, by the way, Ernest Dove actually wants prospects to be traded. But this is kind of what I did want.
Are you sure you're okay, Ernest? Because I've known you for 5 years almost. You sure you're okay right now? You sure you wanted to go there?
I can explain myself in a minute. I think the reason why I wanted this offseason to be the beginning of packaging minor leaguers and or a few other guys is because I thought that the Mets, a couple years ago, I used to do the whole thing. The Mets were top heavy in teens.
I remember.
So the Mets farm system, their top 30 was pretty much a whole bunch of teenagers, or 18 to 20 or 16 to 20. And they were very top heavy in the young kids. Now you fast forward 2-3 years, all of those young kids and the recent draft picks, they're all at the AA, AAA right now heading into 2024. So when you have all of these guys, because you and I can talk about it, I can name 8 or 9 pitchers in my head that are all quality top 30-ish prospect quality ranking guys who are all going to be pitching at either AA, AAA. They're already in the upper minors. There's nowhere else to go. So I was thinking between all of those upper minors guys now, and between a Mauricio, which obviously sad, but between a Mauricio, Vientos, Beatty, I was kind of thinking it's time to trade one or more of them as well, because they're already here. What are we doing? You got to pick one to be in the core, pick one, you know, to gamble on the guy you want on your 26 man, and then part with the others. That's honestly been my take. I'm ready to start moving guys. I don't know if anyone agrees with me. Maybe people can tune in or say something.
Well, I've got a lot of comments. Mauricio obviously is an asterisk because he's hurt for the first half of the season. But the other two, since we've seen them here in Citi Field, we can certainly maybe talk about that in a second. Before I do anything else, I want to say hello to our buddy Shane Davidson, Armageddon Shane Davidson, who wants to say that he wants to come on here at some point soon. And message me on Instagram. I'm at the Sports Report. She knows where I am. So he can message me on Instagram, and we can maybe set that up right now. But I want to also say hello to my buddy Ron, who's a Philadelphia Phillies fan. How you doing, Ron? He's also worried about his Green Bay Packers. I want to get to our buddy Jay Vidal in a second. Jay, I'm going to get to you. He's got some comments toward us. Thank you, Metseed 1986 for sharing.
Oh, that's my guy. That's my DSL minor league guy. I hope everyone tries to follow him on Twitter, by the way.
Good man. You're a good man. I want to thank the Talking Rivals again for sharing. Tom, will we ever see Antonio Gonzalez on Sportswire Radio in the near future? Well, I'm open to talking to anybody. You know that here on Sportswire. So if there's a way anybody wants me to get in touch with somebody, I'm at the Sports Report 2021 on Instagram, Thomas Price 2017 on Twitter, YouTube at Sportswire Radio 6579 backspace streams, Jay. And if you like what you see, give me a sub and message me, and I'll talk about it. I want to say hello again to Soldier GP, the IMF World Champion. Going to be the 8th member, technically, because Omen Black, the boogeyman of the Midwest, it's going to be the 7th. We're going to actually do 2 for the price of 1. They're the foundation of the IMF, and it'll be the 7th and 8th members of the Hall of Fame. So they'll be here Saturday night, 10 o'clock Eastern Time. Ernest is my favorite prospect hugger. Yes, Ernest is definitely the best. That's why he's a Hall of Famer. And Jay also wants to know, what's it like working with the Mets? I mean, what's it like working with the St. Lucie Mets? Maybe you want to phrase that in a better way for him.
I mean, listen, it's super fun, man. I'm on the outside in. I'm one of the freelancer guys, sports content provider. Even my credentials are through my private corporation. But it's been super cool because obviously, as a fan of the organization, which I know I'm biased, so sorry. But obviously it's pretty amazing. It took me some years. Like I said, I've been on the grind for 10 years. I didn't just get credentials in my first year saying, hey, I want to come see Mets. So it was an amazing opportunity from Adam McDonald, who helped me. He gave me he wanted me to, I gave him the respect.
I remember Adam very well. Yep.
He gave me the chance. He wanted to allow me the privilege of having credentials. So it's an amazing experience, even with St. Lucie now at Clover Park, where they redid everything. So a lot of money was even put into the field. So the place looks amazing. So, I mean, it's an amazing experience. You and I have talked about this over the years, by the way, if I talk. But Jay, my thing is, I love the opportunity of watching free Mets minor league games. But one of the things that's been amazing since 2015, I love the opportunities with the players and even their friends and family members.
You got to know a lot of them. I mean, Jose Buto, I think about, was here with the Mets, and Manny Rodriguez. I mean, I remember all the shows we did with him about who's the DJ of the clubhouse. All those music stories with him, Connor O'Neill and Marcel Renteria. I mean, Steven Valines. I mean, Trey Cobb, an emotional story with Trey Cobb in a lot of ways. I mean, a lot of these guys, we really got a chance to get to know over the years, and I think that's really what I'm going to remember most about what you've done is you've really been fair and partial to these guys. And also you've covered them in a way that I think a lot of people at those levels would not have given them the recognition and the due that you did. And I think that's why you have kind of hung in there as long as you've done it. And I think that you've thrived. And I think that's why a lot of people on Twitter, look to you because you've also always been down the line. You've always done it, in your own twist. You've never been, you've never been negative in ways toward people. You've always let people answer questions to you on Twitter. We got Ernest DOV, man's got almost 7,000 followers on Twitter. Go follow this man. You've always been somebody, again, that I think has done it in a way that I think that this is why you're in the 6th member of the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame. And also I want to say hello to our buddy, Mr. Craven Rage, the ruler of the yard, the backyard nightmare. He says, hello, Tom. Thank you very much. Also, I want to come back here to more from Mr. No More Wilpons. He says here, I wouldn't trade prospects or monster deals because all in for Burns and Soto. And he also says, not all the upper minors guys will hit. 3/4 will be Beatty or Vientos, and the other 1/4 will hit.
I mean, that's the bottom line. That's one thing I've had to understand because, again, I've been mostly, again, prospect hugging since 2013. And over those 10 years, like 90% of the guys are kind of gone. So
listen, I just rattled off guys with you that unfortunately, they didn't work out. They didn't make it. I mean, I think, Stephen Nagosic did. I think that's the one most notably that we had a chance to interview that wound up kind of hanging in there. And he was able to get over the finish line and at least has had, a couple of different stints in the big leagues, but most important, a lot of these guys don't make it really, unfortunately.
I mean, but just the amount of just really kind, good-hearted gentlemen that have come through I mean, usually.
How about the Hammer fam? Remember we interviewed the Zach Hammer? I mean, what a family that was, and
just beautiful families. There's so many kind people over the years. I know Brandon Fryman, who's no longer with the Mets organization, just a sweet guy, the son of obviously Travis Fryman.
Yep.
I know years ago, Justin Dunn, I feel bad that some injuries seem to have did a lot. But I know in the minors, I used to take a lot of photos and videos of all of his pitches and strikeouts, and I would send it to his dad because he said his dad would always get nervous, even in the minor leagues, watching him play. So I would only send the dad photos and the videos of the strikeouts because those are all the positive things. I love all that stuff. I had another player's, the girlfriend was sitting there, and she was telling me how kind and how he's trying his best, rooming with like 6 people. These guys are fighting for dreams, man. That's the thing with the minor leaguers. You have the guys in the first round, but a lot of the guys you and I have interviewed over the years, they got those $1,000, $5,000, and $10,000 bonuses. It's a grind. Like even Jake Mangum, shout out Jake Mangum. Now he's still bouncing around trying to get his shot in the minors. And he's a hard-nosed guy.
Well, I think the one that was the most fun we did was the Bryce Hutchinson one. I think that was the one.
Bryce was an absolute
character. That was like, oh, my God. Now, he could have been, for a lot of our wrestlers, he should have been, like, in wrestling because his personality was, like, I mean, he was so over the top, that guy. And he was just, like, he had a larger-than-life personality. He had the size, just unfortunately, just a number of different things didn't work for him, but he was the guy, I think of all we might have did maybe about 20 of them over the years. I think he was probably my most favorite one with you was Bryce Hutchinson.
Yeah, I think Bryce Hutchinson, I think he's still king of the Twitch, man. So if you're on Twitch and gaming.
A lot of our wrestlers are on Twitch. So
see if you can find Bryce Hutchinson and check him out playing.
And then we famously had was it Cody Bohannon? Cody Bohannon, right, who was traded for Ike Davis. It was in the Ike Davis trade.
JD Davis. JD Davis trade.
In the JD Davis trade. We had him, and that was funny because I kept mispronouncing his name the entire time till I finally asked him, "What's your last name? How do I say it?" It was kind of funny, but yeah, that was another good one. We had a lot of good ones. We had a lot of good times, and that's why you're in the Hall of Fame. And my name is the Reverend Tom Bryce, your voice of all wrestling, the host of the Sports Report, the owner of Sportzwire Radio. And if you like what you hear from us, you can follow us anytime here on Sportzwire Radio. Sportzwire Radio 6579 backspace streams. If you want to hear Ernest when he does the Mets minor league report, you can check us out 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year on sportswireradio.org. You can check us out also on our Tumblr page, where you can read about Ernest and my statement on him being inducted as the 6th member of the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame. And also, again, on sportswireradio.org, if you have a podcast, if you want to hear some different things, if you have any suggestions, let me know, because I'm the guy that runs the station. And for free of charge, you get your opportunity to hear yourself on a worldwide internet radio station, and you get your chance when it comes to music, talk, whatever it is, anything on your mind. Let us know, and I'll give you your chance to hear it on sportswireradio.org. And I also want to say hello to our First Lady of Sportswire Radio, Ms. Dina, who's tuned in. Although she's a Yankees fan, my condolences to her. We are here talking New York Mets, but I'll also be back on here at 9:30 p.m. with Chase Wakefield of VTW and DBW. So we're going back to wrestling, Ernest, at 9:30. But I'm back talking college sports tomorrow afternoon, 3:15 p.m. with the head coach of the Five-Town Sound women's soccer team, Mr. Jeff Lewis. So that's kind of been the hallmark of Sportswire. I'm doing minor leagues and baseball with you. I'm back into wrestling later. Tomorrow afternoon, I'm back into soccer, and then who knows what else I do Thursday. But that's always been why we've been able to survive. But again, you want to follow Ernest please follow him on all the different platforms that he is on. Again, he is on Twitter at Ernest Instagram, Ernest.dob, but also YouTube, because you can see some of these video interviews. So on sportswireradio.org, you might hear Ernest talk with a David Griffin or a Mike Vasile, but you're not going to see the video version. So go to his YouTube page. You can also see Ernest in action when St. Lucie Mets players are going out there and dominating, kicking some butt. Ernest takes those videos that everybody talks about, and also check him out on maxmets.blogspot.com. Mac has always been a good friend of us here in Sportswire. He's always shared our stuff. He's always done anything that's been accommodating. So I want to make sure we support Ernest there as well. But we're talking with Ernest now, the 6th member of the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame. So let me get to a ton of more comments here. Jay would love to be on in the future. Well, thank you, Jay. Let me know. Get in touch, and I will talk to you after the show. I want to say hello to Blaze. Let's go Mets. Definitely Blaze. Let's go Mets. I also see here soon you'll have more members on your Hall of Fame roster than AEW. That's kind of a joke there in wrestling. But also no Islanders. Well, I mean, there's no Islanders in the Hall of Fame. I mean, I could put Rich Pilon in the Hall of Fame, but I haven't spoken to Rich Pilon in 2 years. But if you have any more suggestions in the Hall of Fame that have come on to Sportswire over the past 5 years, let me know. And No More Wilpons has supported us in the past. He was even on the show when we were the Sports Report days. So I want to make sure that we certainly, acknowledge that. And Jay also gave me a message. And Jay, I'll check out the message after we're done. And What is the difference for working under the St. Lucie Mets now that Steve Cohen is the owner versus, well, the Wilpons? I'm trying to be.
Okay. I'm going to be very respectful, like I've been over the years. So, the main thing, the difference, even from my little low-level standard, is even when I talked, I interviewed Ricky Meinhold, who was in the.
Oh yes, a couple times. I remember that. Yeah,
he was one of the pitching coaches in the Mets organization from minors and even a brief stint in the major leagues, and he was mentioning all of the influx of the resources that we're talking about now. Now this offseason, we could talk about it in a little bit. They now have the pitching lab, so the minor leaguers have been going to the pitching lab. They've already been there. I'm not sure if they're going back to it, but there's a camp happening in mid-January, by the way. So maybe a lot of the beat writers, or if anyone, keep an eye out for more reports after mid-January. A lot of the top prospects are coming back to St. Lucie. But the thing was, it was the resources. And Ricky Meinhold was saying, hey, there's a lot of resources that are now funneling in, because we talk about salaries all day. The Mets have the top salary, every year. And we know about the tax hit. But since Cohen took over, it extends all the way down to the minors. He's providing all extra resources, equipment. He's been doing additional things. So that's one of the things I've been noticing. And then again, I think some of it was league-wide, so I can't just credit Cohen only, because there's been some changes in salaries and everything as well.
We spoke about that famously. Remember, the minor league system has changed when we first started together. Remember, you had all the different affiliates, and there's been combinations there. So, there's been different things. Obviously, the draft has changed. Remember, obviously, that was another big thing we spoke about during COVID. That's where I think you got credit from. Your friend Ken Rosenthal, I believe, quoted you, and I was trying to actually find it somewhere on Twitter.
That's old school.
Yeah, I was trying to find that tweet, and I couldn't find it. And I was trying to actually put that in my statement of inducting you into the Hall of Fame. Steve Cohen wasn't too bad that you're friends with, but I was trying to find the Ken Rosenthal tweet, and I couldn't find it. But yeah, there's been a lot of changes in the minor leagues that certainly, I think some of them have been league-wide. Some of them, I'm sure Mr. Cohen has done certainly, his stamp of approval on things. He wants to win. It's his team. He's entitled to do whatever he wants with it. Look, and I don't want to make this about the Wilpons, because look, they did some good things. They tried. It wasn't like they didn't ever try. We did win at times. It just wasn't maybe to what the fan base has expected. But Cohen's on the clock now too, because we spoke about the top before I get into the minor leagues. The Mets really this offseason really haven't done much. And last year, they wound up doing a lot, and it wound up showing in nothing in the field. So at the end of the day, it isn't always about buying the players. Look at this year's Arizona Diamondbacks go to the World Series, and they were basically near the bottom in payroll. It doesn't always matter in baseball. It's a total crapshoot. The Braves, when they won the World Series in 21, their payroll was what? Middle of the pack? At the end of the day, you look at the Padres, right? Spent all that money last year, and now they're basically going toward the bottom in payroll because they didn't win, and they tried to kind of do a one-shot deal to win. It doesn't work out. So listen, baseball is a total crapshoot. You just never know. And I want to come to the minor leagues in a second. I want to get to some more comments. He meant no more Islanders talk. Well, we do that Friday nights. Actually, we do an abbreviated sports show. So if you want to tune in, No More Wilpons, Friday nights, 10 o'clock Eastern time on YouTube and Twitter at my pages. That's where I do talk a little bit of hockey. I think I do about 10 or 15 minutes still on hockey, but after January 5th, when we get into the playoffs for the NFL, we'll do a little bit more hockey with Randy Dillon. You can follow Randy at Randy Dillon with DHILLON on Twitter. He is our hockey guy. He also hosts the Hockey Fan Chat, which you can hear on sportswireradio.org. So to answer your question, yes, we do still do some hockey, but we don't do as much when you were at the old beginnings of the Skype days and those muffled phone conversations on the Sports Report on SoundCloud. We've kind of morphed and we've improved. Listen, Ernest, we've even got new lights. We've got banners. We've got stickers.
We've got everything.
I spent a lot of money on the lighting here. I've really tried to improve to show that, you should be in this Hall of Fame. And I want to say hello to our First Lady of Sportswire, Miss Zena, who wants to send my condolences. Well, the condolences should be to the fact the Yankees didn't get Yamamoto, but I'm going to leave that there. This is Ernest's spot. But let's talk about the minor leagues, and we love our First Lady, so give her a big shout out. But, now this Met offseason for our minor leagues. Obviously, you spoke with David Griffin, which you can still hear on our SoundCloud page at soundcloud.com/the Sports Report 2019. So talk about some minor league guys that we can look for on the horizon. And let's start off with David Griffin first.
Yeah, I just love David Griffin because I love the underdog story, guys. I mean, it is what I've been doing this forever. Even Steven Nagosic, I love the idea of him as an underdog making it to the main.
He made it, Steven, and he's still out there as a free agent. And that was, I think, our favorite one, really.
He made it. He got DFA'd. He made it again. Got DFA'd.
Never gave up.
He never gave up. And David Griffin
got married recently too. I think. Congratulations to him getting married.
Yeah, but David Griffin wasn't even drafted, so that's why I love that even more. Like undrafted guy. When I interviewed him, he talked about his story. He wasn't even a pitcher in like high school, so he just kind of showed up, pitched a little bit finally in college, and then he just showed up in indie ball, just eating innings, and then he found his way into a contract with the Mets. And then here he is last year, getting all the way to AAA, like having like 5 innings, no runs. He went through a lot of ups and downs. And I know David Griffin, I'm excited about him. I just asked and talked to him a little bit, some of the offseason stuff. It looks like the velocity's ticking up, which is really cool for him. Because, certain guys, it's always about velocity nowadays. And I know David Griffin, the velocity's peaking up 1 or 2 clicks, maybe even 2 or 3. So a guy like that, if you can eat innings, and he's still kind of preparing himself as a starter, whatever the Mets want to do, he's down for whatever. But he's a guy whose velo is going up. I wonder how high it can go. It's getting higher up in the 90s. Maybe we can see it get to 95, 96. Let's see how high it can go. I love him to death. Another guy who I might be interviewing very soon. I guess I won't name him, so I won't jinx it.
Yeah, don't do that, because Ernest, I always tell all my guests when they have something up their sleeve. Don't say anything, because it'll come right back to me and you'll jinx it, exactly like you said.
Well, yeah, you know what? Keep an eye on the Mets minor league report on Sportswire Radio, because your boy Dove might be interviewing a top 10 Mets prospect.
Ooh, okay.
But yeah, the thing with the Mets is that, again, they're full of upper minors guys. This is what we've been talking about, because they're all here now. You have like Blade Tidwell, who gets kind of the most press. I think he was kind of the highest bonus guy as far as draft pick wise.
Well, I go back to when we were talking about David Peterson, Mark Vientos, and those guys, Ronnie Mauricio, Francisco Alvarez, Jose Buto. I mean, I remember talking about those guys with you, and those names were foreign to Mets fans. Now they certainly have an opinion on them, but you were like one of the first people to talk about them back, like when nobody else was really, especially Peterson. I remember you came on the show one day and brought up Peterson. We just drafted, I think, out of Oregon, if I'm not mistaken, Oregon State it was. And it was like, people were like, well, who is this guy? And then we saw him go into the fire real quick during COVID for us. So you never know.
Yeah, I just feel like we have a new wave. I've been saying it on social media. The Mets are full of upper minors guys. Now, the question is, how many of them are frontline starters? Because everybody wants a new ace. Is there a new ace currently in the Mets organization? Respectfully, I don't know. Okay. I do know that Blade Tidwell, he has been kind of hyped as a possible guy to be that SP2, maybe like a second guy, maybe behind a Senga at an absolute as a height, as his kind of high ceiling. Blade Tidwell is because of his stuff. He's the guy that can throw the upper 90s as a starter. Then you have Mike Vassell, who's already he's the guy who's
another guy you've interviewed before. Yep.
So I've interviewed Vassell. He's now at the AAA level, nowhere else to go. He's a really strong guy. My update on Mike Vassell in the offseason, he's been working a lot on his mechanics, refining the secondary pitches. All about command. He's had a lot of outings where the command was really good. I think it's one of those things, too, when you jump a higher level, things can get kind of weird. I remember when Mike Vassell was kind of invited, the Mets wanted him to go to the Arizona Fall League in the previous offseason. You kind of jump into it, and the hitters are a little bit more advanced than what he was seeing. So he always makes the adjustments. He's one of those guys you want to like. It was the Wheeler thing, not to compare, but like the Zach Wheeler thing when people yell, like, stop trying to nitpick the corners of your pitches. I mean, sometimes maybe that's what's happening. But Mike Vassell's a strong arm, maybe one of those mid-rotation guys as well. And I think the Mets are pretty much full of mid-rotation guys. You have Christian Scott that a lot of people love. I've seen people rank Christian Scott in the top 5 on Mets rankings. Other people have him 10 to 12. Some people feel that Christian Scott is the best pitching prospect in the Mets organization. I honestly can't really argue it. So all I can do is support saying you have your guy, maybe I have mine. A lot of people love Christian Scott. And then one of my favorites is Tyler Stewart. And it seems like, let me just respectfully say, my opinion. My opinion, because a lot of people online the last couple of years since he was drafted, everyone is kind of projecting Tyler Stewart as a reliever. I respectfully refuse to accept that. I don't agree with it. I feel Tyler Stewart can be a starting pitcher in Major League Baseball. And Tyler Stewart does not throw two pitches, everyone. He throws a four-seamer, a two-seamer, a changeup, a cutter, and a slider. And his bread and butter is the slider. Around the Mets organization, the whole talk is that Tyler Stewart already throws a Major League slider. He just happens to be pitching in the minors. So when you see him in some of the games, it's embarrassing for the hitters when it's at its peak, you know. But by the way, it was at its peak most of last season because I think into the summer, he had the lowest ERA in minor league baseball for qualified pitchers. That's what he was doing in high A. So he has up to 5 pitches that he throws. He didn't throw all of them in every game because that's what player development is in the minors. But again, Ernest Dove says Tyler Stewart can be a major league starting pitcher, not a reliever. I will respectfully argue with anyone. Go on, Ernest Dove. Tell me why you think he's a reliever. I will disagree with you respectfully, and we'll enjoy the banter. Some of the other pitchers that I also like, well, we have Dominic Hamill.
That's a name I've heard of, yep.
I think it was the Mets player development Twitter account, which I love very much. They interviewed him, I think, recently. Dominic Hamill is one of those guys. He either is absolutely lights out, 6 innings, 0 runs, 11 Ks, or it's like 3 innings, 4 runs, based on some walks and command. So he's one of those guys.
Snow for us, then.
I mean, if Dom Hamill puts it together, he's going to be a problem in the major leagues because he's that strikeout guy. And then I have some of my favorites in the lower minors, like in A-ball. I have Felipe De La Cruz, who I was praising to the bitter end of life during last season. He's a lefty who throws up to 95. I know some people, I'm not sure if he projects 100% as a starter. I talked to some of the coaches in St. Lucie. They feel he is still starter material. They want him, obviously, to work on command. Command was another thing for him. He has a breaking ball that can be devastating when it's in the strike zone or around it. The fastball for a lefty being mid-90s, you'll take that all day long from a young pitcher. It's all about command, command, command. The coaches feel he can stick as a starter, so I want to respect the coaches and see that. The other guy is Jordani Valdez.
I was going to say, Ernest, I don't think that's a prospect. We've seen him before. I don't think Met fans would like to see him back.
Don't get hit in the balls. But Jordani Ventura is one of those guys who has like absolutely filthy like Familia stuff and then Familia command. So when you got like Familia stuff and Familia command, what do we do? I'm excited to see what – and he was also injured in the last year or so. So at a really 100% healthy Jordani Ventura, what is that going to look like? Can he be a reliever? I think in my own mind, I want him to be a reliever. If he wants to be a starter, I'm so sorry. I apologize for throwing you down to reliever status. But I love the idea of Jordani. Like, it's probably a bad comp and I know it, but I like the idea of, can he be a ceiling of like a Familia? I have no idea, but I just
when you hear Familia, that's going to excite a lot of Met fans because he was lights out for a few years for us. Yep.
Follow Dove's advice, who knows nothing, and I'm not in the organization, but can you try him as a reliever and have him go all out for like 1 inning? Can he have enough command to be like some kind of Familia? That's what I'm excited about. Otherwise, the recent draft pick, Brandon Sproat, I can say that he was drafted, but he never even pitched last year when he got drafted. So hopefully he shows up in like AA. I don't even know. He ended up being a senior draft guy because he stayed back in the draft. He's got elite stuff that can get to 99, 100. Do you just throw him right into AA and say, here's the fire, dude. You're old enough. Go get it. I want him to do that, but maybe they do keep him in like high A first for like a week or a month. Maybe we'll see. But here I am naming all these pitchers. They might all be maybe somebody gets to SP2. Maybe the rest are mid rotation or relievers. But there's a lot of guys. Does that mean the Mets are not going to sign Awaka or Salugo or anyone because these guys are all going to be ready in a year or two? I don't know. That's probably.
Well, I think. Listen, I agree with you as we're talking with Ernest Dove, now the 6th member of the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame for a little while longer. And of course, Ernest is obviously a huge part of things in the entire history of Sportswire Radio. He's the host of the Mets Minor League Report. You can also catch him as an accredited member of the media. covering the St. Lucie Mets. He has done a phenomenal job also writing articles for the likes of maxmets.blogspot.com for the past 10 years. And my name is the Reverend Tom Bryce. I think, listen, Seth Lugo, I think my point was that the Mets weren't going to bring him back. Fine. Michael Wacha was somebody, maybe you come back and revisit. You've got Quintana. What happens with him after the season? That's going to be determined. But we'll certainly, listen, if you talk about a number two, a lot of teams could use a second starter. There's no question about it. I mean, the Yankees have the ace, but they didn't have, after that, quite the starting pitching. So we can still use those second and third rotation guys. Let me get to a few more comments here. Those old days were classic. Yeah, they were classic. I tell you what, they were a lot of fun. In some ways, I do look back fondly of those days. We were the Sports Report. We were on SoundCloud and the muffled phone calls we were recording through and the Skype days. And I finally got that software that was cutting the audio. We were doing the clips and all through the Headliner app, which I took the class for. It was fun. It was fun, but we've actually grown a lot since then because look at what we've got here. We've got the video, we've got lights, we've got a Hall of Fame, we've got a website where we can play people's podcasts from all over the world. We have live content being streamed here. Ernest gets to see visually now. In those days, we couldn't see his beautiful face. His girlfriend would agree with us on that as well. But, it's a different time, but I think that I look back fondly because it was people like No More Wilpons that allowed us to thrive and continue to be where we are right now. So thank you for that. He has a question here before I get to a few other things in the minors. Which hitter and pitcher do you like the most and why? I think you kind of answered it, but do you want to elaborate if there's one or two or other things you want to add on that question?
I mean, I do want to state the obvious. A lot of people do love Blade Tidwell. Bias. I love Tyler Stewart, Mike Vassell. As far as hitters, Jet Williams is legit. Jet's plate discipline is for real. If I just not want to use the super highest guys that everyone knows of, one of the guys that I'm obsessed with as a hitter is Wilfredo Lara, who is, I think he's still 19. I'm not sure. I got to check the page if he's 19 or 20. But Wilfredo Lara kind of came out of nowhere because he's one of those IFA kids. He signed a little bit late, and I think there was logistical issues. It was around the COVID season. So he didn't sign at like 16. He signed later, lower bonus. He seems to have come out of absolutely nowhere. And ever since Wilfredo Lara has been in the Mets organization in the low minors, he's played up to 6 or 7 positions. He has power. He has a hit tool. He has speed. And he can play 6 or 7 positions. So my thing is I'm really excited about what can possibly happen for a super utility guy. Are they going to find him a position? Are they going to just say screw it and let him play all 6 or 7 all the way up to the AA, AAA and figure it out? I just love a dark horse guy like that. The other dark horse guy would be Jeffrey Rosa, who I've been joking about all of last summer.
Yeah, that's the name I've seen on Twitter you talk about. That I've definitely seen that.
Jeffrey Rosa, in the DSL, he had 15 home runs in 44 games. That's what I said. 15 in 44 games. He almost hit a home run every other game. So I like the idea of him. Is the hit tool going to work stateside? That's going to be amazing.
You're talking about a home run every probably like 10 at bats.
As far as pitchers, I've said the guys that I love the most. The one guy I wanted to shout out anyway, so I want to put him in here, is last year's 20th round pick, Eli Ankney, the lefty. Yes. He's a lefty reliever, and my understanding, he's working in the offseason for developing new pitches. Because my thing is, I've heard this from multiple minor league pitchers in the last few months. They're all into the sweeper craze. I mean, you've been hearing the term now from national media and everything else. The Mets seem to be on the sweeper train. So even Eli Ankney is also working on a sweeper slider. He's also looking to gain velo. I've been hearing this now. I want to talk about it too in a second. Sure. Even in the Dominican Republic, the pitchers, even down there in the DSL right now in Dominican, a lot of the pitchers are increasing their velo. David Griffin's increasing his velo. And Eli Ankney is working on certain mechanics to go with his cutter and splitter and his fastball, trying to get the fastball up a few ticks to go with the sweeper slider. That's my little small intel, is that the Mets seem to be doing it with numerous pitchers, regardless of levels, age, draft status. A lot of pitchers seem to be developing the sweeper. And I know they're all working on the pitching lab, which is really cool. Shout out to the Mets pitching lab. All the pitchers have loved it that have been there. They were waiting on their test scores.
We'll talk about it here with Ricky Mino going back 2 years ago now, I want to say, a little over 2 years ago, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. And that's when he said they were waiting on the lab. He's like, it's not here yet, but all the other resources are starting to funnel in. So now it's the pitching lab. When the offseason started, the minor leaguers have started going in groups. They're not all going together. So I knew of some of the groups. They were waiting for their test scores. They have all these plates on the mound. They're literally like showing you probably in some weird HD, some kind of like futuristic kind of thing on the computer screen showing your all. They have it all going on. So I was excited. But again, shout out Eli Ankney because he came out of nowhere in the 20th round, and he was dominating for most of the season, striking everyone out. So I want to see guys like Ankney, Felipe de la Cruz, and then for hitters, I love Wilfredo Lara. I love the idea of him, and I love the idea of Jeffrey Rosa. I love the idea of some of these guys beyond the top 5, top 10, top 20 to keep an eye on.
Absolutely, no question about that. And these are things you can find Ernest.
Oh, we're having old school stuff with some of the things going on.
Yeah, I'm going to try to fix this here. You're at Ernest Dove on Twitter. So obviously, Ernest, I know, is having some issues with the video, and we'll obviously keep it to a length here when it comes to the end of the show. But is there anything else on the minor end that we should know about before? Maybe I ask you one or two more thoughts on what the Mets do for the rest of the offseason. Is there anything else in the minor leagues we should know about? Any other information you might know from out there in Winnable? Anything else you want to throw out there? Because I know you always got something up your sleeve.
Yeah, no, just the small things that I mentioned earlier in the show. The Mets, some of the top minor leaguers around the organization, they're going to be meeting up again in mid-January. So let's see if there's any kind of intel or any kind of reports that start happening again after they go through their next camp, like a version of their next minor league camp. And recently, the instructional league just ended in the Dominican Republic. And the main thing I wanted to ask what was going on, and I know there's been a lot of videos, some of our favorite guys that I know on Twitter, he's been tweeting out a lot of the videos. And my main understanding is that as a group, the pitchers down in Dominican Republic have been looking really good. Again, the development is in gaining velo and command. And they were praising the pitchers in Dominican right now. So I want to be excited about that. I don't know how many of those pitchers might show up stateside because they're still participating in that instructional league in the Dominican. Don't know if that means they're going to get that ticket and show up here by spring, but I'm hearing good things again in the low minors and DSL.
And also there was one player I wanted to bring up that you recently posted about, Drew Gilbert.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. He's one of those gamer guys, right? He's one of those guys you call hard-nosed gamer. He's probably one of those guys.
He's kind of what you talk about, kind of like in that middle tier right now. He's in Binghamton. So you know that, like, I don't know if you hear about him right away, but that's a name to keep an eye on. So I wanted to throw that one out there because you recently posted about him.
I mean, that's the thing. You want to say who's going to reach the majors first. Now, Luis-Angel Acuna,
everybody knows that name. Yep, everybody knows that.
He's already on the 40-man roster, so he probably gets first dibs. Now, depending on the roster manipulation during the year, let's not pull an Epler, everyone, and mess with it supposedly. So, depending on other scenarios, you can see a scenario where Gilbert has to be put on that 40-man, aka 26, right away, because I would like to assume he's going to be in AAA already at the start of the year. I think Acuna will start in AAA. So you're going to have two of the top 5 prospects as bats in AAA. Now, Jet Williams, I know he's like Alvarez. Jet Williams has aspirations of being in the majors in 2024. He's only 19 years old, talking about 20. So I don't know if he'll be a 20-year-old major leaguer. I don't even know if he'll break camp in AAA. He might break camp, I'm assuming, in AA again, because there's going to be a backlog of players. It seems like every day the Mets are signing a veteran-ish guy who's probably going to end up in Syracuse. So that's the other thing I've been hearing. I've been hearing that with these guys getting signed, a lot of arms, even though some of the top pitching prospects in the Mets organization, they were having meetings in the offseason immediately with like AAA coaches. But I don't think all of them are going to AAA because of the onslaught of veterans being signed to minor league deals. Because if they don't make the team out of camp, depending on how many want to stay with the Mets organization, I think you're going to see some top pitching prospects start the year in AA, which is kind of sad for me. I want them as close as possible, but that's my projection.
Yeah, because you want to get to know him, so hopefully we can have him here on Sportswire. You can do it for your show, what you obviously is a staple for us here, the Mets Minor League Report. So yeah, selfishly, we might want to see him a little closer to you in St. Lucie, but realistically, they might be going to Brooklyn. They might be going to Binghamton. So we really don't, really don't know about those things. Obviously, that was a name I wanted to throw out there, and we'll certainly see more of that, as I'm sure that everybody will get a chance to on your Twitter at Ernest Dove. It's Ernest Dove, very simple, Dove. Also, YouTube. If you want to see some of those videos of Ernest in action, we get to see future players, future prospects going out there and dominating on the field. Ernest overall just doing what he does best. Also, Ernest Dove on YouTube, and check out his articles on our very good friends over at maxmets.blogspot.com. That's maxmets.blogspot.com. John has always been a very, very good friend of ours here on Sportswire, and he's been with us since the old SoundCloud days, and we still actually post Ernest's interviews once they get off sportswireradio.org to soundcloud.com still. So he keeps our SoundCloud page alive and all those memories. So if you want to, poke fun at our interviews, or maybe you want to enjoy them, I think the ones with Ernest were good. The ones I did before that, certainly flip a coin and see how you feel. But is there anything else before I move on to final thoughts? And obviously, finish this, again, historic moment. You're the 6th member of the Hall of Fame, but is there anything else in the Met offseason that you're watching for this team and what they may or may not do?
I mean, just really what we've already talked about. I just want to see if they sign pretty much anyone to more than a 1-year deal by going into camp. I want to see if they do go against their word a little bit and finally package a few prospects for someone. That's the only thing I really want to see, because I don't know what else they're going to do. Maybe they'll solve the DH position. I would like to, maybe let's go ahead and sign a veteran 20, 25 homer guy that may be out there somewhere.
JD Martinez is out there if you're going to, but you're not, I don't think we're breaking the bank on him. I mean, that's a name that, would actually fit that description. I mean, and he's a guy 36, so maybe you could get him for not the 5-year deal. Maybe you get him for 2 years. Maybe you get him for 3. That's a name that, the Mets have talked about getting him in the past. If you hear talk radio, I mean, that's the name that fits the description perfectly.
I mean, there's a few guys out there still. I just don't, now that we lost Mauricio to injury, I just don't know if Beatty and Vientos are going to break camp. So I want to know the decision on those two, whether anyone gets traded, whether anyone just gets stuck in AAA all year. I'm curious to know where the Mets go with the younger guys, because is it going to look like a bit of a rebuild with they're going to have the highest payroll again in the league. So can you really have a version of a rebuild season while having the highest payroll?
And I think my question is, what about Alonso? I think nobody's brought him up. And what happens with Pete Alonso? You have to sign him to a max deal to add to the payroll. No, I mean, he basically is what this franchise has never had, a young player with a power bat for years to come in a corner position. I mean, you have to keep him, no?
I mean, I would want to keep it. Everyone keeps being against it. I don't understand why. How do you want to get rid of 40 and 100?
You know why?
He's not going to age well.
Because you know why? Because there's now it's the war crowd. He's not a war player. So you have the war crowd, the analytics crowd looks at an Alonso and they don't like him. But at the end of the day, the New York Mets historically have never had somebody that can hit 40 home runs every season in his sleep. I mean, Piazza, close, but we didn't have him. We had him at the end of his prime. We had him briefly in his prime, but we only really had Piazza for 4 or 5 great years.
Yeah.
I mean, Kingman, all right, Rob Maraska, I'm sure we'll talk about in his dentures about, how great we love Rob. But the joke is that, Kingman, okay, for a couple years, Strawberry, but that's it. I mean, in Delgado. But the Mets historically have not had a guy like this in Alonso that you could have for the next 10 years and just solve the problem that this franchise has never had, a power hitter at a corner position who's young.
I mean, he could be our other David Wright into his mid-30s. Hopefully, just let's see how it goes. There's guys over the years that were hitting 200, hitting 40 bombs. They were making a career out of it into their age 39, 40 season. So even if he did that as a DH in our future, who's the DH? The guy who's hitting 30-something homers at age 36 maybe? So, I mean, he might age well. I don't know if he'll age well at first base, but you know what? Speaking of analytics, let analytics do their job. Let them place him in the perfect position defensively on every single at-bat. Maybe he'll make, the right plays being in the perfect position. So it's up to you, analytics department. Get Alonso in the right position. Because I have seen in the offseason, the Mets are signing a lot of guys with high K rates and then also a lot of guys with a high ground ball rates. If you're going to sign anyone with a bunch of ground ball rates, if they make the club, somebody better be playing good defense outside of Lindor.
Yeah, I guess the thing with the Mets is we're talking with Ernest Dove here for a few more minutes. Obviously, we want to be respectful of Ernest's time and such, and we'll be back on the air at 9:30 with Chase Wakefield of DBW and BTW. But I guess if you are going to look at the positives, the Mets, again, McNeil, you hope bounces back. McNeil 2 years ago was one of the best hitters in baseball. He's been a good player for us for a while. We know he can bounce back. Lindor has established himself to be a pretty good power player. I think the comp would be maybe Carlos Beltran, different position, but in terms of what he's giving us, like 260, 270, 30 home runs, 100 RBIs from that position. Okay, fine. You've got Alonso. Alvarez hit 25 home runs last year, a bunch of them early on. Marte's a wild card. So I think that if guys come back and bounce back and play closer to what they hit in 22, this team could come back. And, oh, by the way, you are getting Edwin Diaz back, and you didn't have Edwin Diaz the whole year. So, I mean, on the positives for this team, just wrapping up on the positives, you have some guys that could come back and bounce back, and, guys who didn't even hit for you all the entire season. And I think, Nimmo as well. Nimmo has been probably the most consistent player the Mets have had defensively and offensively. So, if you think about it and summarize it, you got Alvarez, catcher, he hits 25 home runs again. You're going to be happy. Alonso, we know. McNeil bounces back. Lindor, we've established. Can Marte be healthy and be what he was before, basically an all-star? And you got Nimmo, and that's not a bad lineup right there. That's not a bad lineup, and that was the lineup that led you to, I think you were first or second in the National League in runs scored. So, those are some positives. I want to say hello to Daniel Banner, who has not been with us here on Sportswire in ages. Daniel Banner, where have you been? He says here wants to wish you and me a Merry Christmas. Also, Christmas was good. I'm here. I mean, I'm alive. I hope your Christmas was very good, Jay. And I see your messages on my email. I will definitely check them out here. So, obviously, it's been an absolute honor. And we hope to have you back more often. My first question is, why did it take me to induct you into the Hall of Fame to get you back on the sports? Well, I know you're a busy man, but you can't be that busy. That's my first thought is I hope to get you back a lot sooner than the last one. I don't even remember the last time I had you. I think the last time I had you on the show was like right around this time last year. I think you might have maybe early in January you came on, and that's it. Otherwise, you haven't been on, and you used to be on every week with me. You used to be like, hey, can I come on? Hey, can I come on? Now, it's obviously, life changes, but, is there anything else that you might want to say to anybody here that's, certainly Mets minors, fans of yours, or prospect huggers, or anybody else that we should know about before we get to closing thoughts?
No, I'm just, I'm thankful to everyone that's been following me. Like I remember too, shout out Brian Mangum. I don't even know what his Twitter name is anymore. He's changed it a few times, but I remember years ago, he has a high follower count and he was very kind. He's like, I don't know why more people aren't following Ernest Dove. He's a good account. And I had like 300, 400 followers and now I have almost 6,000. So shout out Brian Mangum for just being so kind to me and getting people to kind of listen, a little bit to me. So I mean, I'm not much of anything as a freelance guy without, having the most respect I can get from the community and everyone on social media and Twitter. This is the best I can do. Like, I'm just so thankful to everyone that wants to hear it. It was even in my video, I told Steve Cohen, I'm going to stop being overly sarcastic all the time because it's not getting me anywhere and it doesn't really help me. So I'm trying my best to lower the sarcasm, stick to the facts the best that I can.
And Toscano, you did a lot of great work with him also. You interviewed him a bunch of times. I know he's not with the Mets anymore in terms of covering them. He's obviously with the Braves or was with the Braves, but you always did. I think that's why you are a Hall of Famer in my mind, because people have asked me, well, what's the definition of a Hall of Fame? And I say it's somebody that did something or for a period of time that was extraordinary. And I think, in my opinion, as the host of the Sports Report, the owner of Sportswire Radio, the #1 global radio station, your voice of wrestling, the Reverend Tom Bryce, Ernest Dove, now the honorable, officially, now we can call you the honorable Ernest Dove. You have been extraordinary in your coverage and your sacrifice of your life the past 10 years of covering a lot of guys that, frankly, either they didn't deserve the coverage or maybe didn't warrant the coverage. Some of the guys we had on were an absolute joy to talk with. Other ones, I would have said Art Shamsky, to be honest, was not one of my ever favorite interviews. I mean, I know it was an honor in a way to have him on, but I can say this for certainty. I would never induct Art Shamsky into the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame. So Met fans, you get at me on that. But no, I think that what you've done has basically shown or exemplified the fact that you have been a Hall of Famer as an accredited member of the media, a freelance reporter, and as somebody who for 10 years has dedicated his life into covering minor leaguer after minor leaguer, and in some cases or in many cases, guys who we got a chance to see front row and get them to see action here in the Mets and really do some big things for us. Dom Smith had some success here. Pete Alonso, we spoke about Michael Conforto when he was here. I mean, Steven Nagosic, what an honor it was to interview him. David Peterson, Jose Buto, I mean, Mark Vientos, Brett Beatty. I mean, there's a lot of guys. We can go up and down the roster of people that you had a chance to cover that, they've been here and you saw them firsthand and you dedicated your life and you dedicated your time to covering them. And, and it's great to see that, you know what, you should be recognized. I wish that you would be in more Hall of Fames before this one, but I'm happy that I got you into this one. Maybe one day you'll be in the Writers Hall of Fame. You'll get a vote on the Hall of Fame because that's here nor there. But, maybe you will get recognized for more things. But I wanted to be the first because I want to say this also. You have been one of the reasons why I have succeeded, why I have thrived, why I have been able to go out there and continue to give people have an interest in what I do. It's really because of people like you that were there from the beginning. Rob Maraska, God bless him, and Billy McInerney's been here up and down, throughout the years, and Brad Weiss, the brute force, and different people like you guys that in a way kept us going before we got our footing in the world of wrestling. People now us knowing, we're big, and I'm mentioned on like 15 podcasts a week, and I'm mentioned in all these different backyard wrestling companies, and it's a big deal to come on Sportswire, and the list is out the door to come on. But it was people like you that were here and wanted to come on this show and wanted to talk and give me a reason to continue to go. So I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you for all that you've done, but also thank you for all that you've done for the minor leagues, for all the different people that you've covered. You've gotten to know them and been so generous with your time. And, I think even Bryce Hutchinson, Zachary Hammer, and, Cody Bohannic and Brandon Fryman, Tony DeBrell and Trey Cobb. I mean, Trey Cobb gets me emotional. I think about him and his father, Jay Cobb, such a big supporter of ours. And, Stephen Valines, now that he's starting a family, and Connor O'Neill, and all these different guys that we've had on. Manny Rodriguez. I mean, what a fun guy Manny Rodriguez was. I mean, it's a long list of people that we've had on the platform. Marcel Renteria, to this day still likes some of my posts. So I just really, what you did for them to me goes far and above and beyond what you should have did. And that's why, ladies and gentlemen, you are the 6th member of the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame. You are now officially an honorable. You are the honorable Ernest of, and I want to thank you for all that you have done. I want to thank you for your beautiful family and then granting you the opportunity to come on here and just doing everything that you've done for us. I'm glad your family's doing well, and they've gone through some issues, and I'm glad that they're doing great right now. And your daughter, your daughter is soon going to really also be in the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame because she's killing it in karate. So maybe we'll see her like in UFC or MMA or something else like that. I'll probably interview her in about like 8 years from now or 9 years from now. Who the heck knows? But, I want to give you the floor. I want to give you some closing thoughts. Anything else you want to plug, share, or say? And promise me that it'll be a lot sooner than about a year from now is the next time you come onto Sportswire Radio.
I know, man. I guess I'm too cool for school sometimes. But, yeah, life is an interesting kind of road we all go on.
Yep.
We've said a lot of the names already. I'm down to say it again because, again, with what I do, everything I do on social media, I'm nothing without the people who are kind enough to at least listen to what I have to say or listen via words when it's just in the post. All the players and families, again, shout out to all my favorite ones over the years, like Marcel Renteria. Like, I'm just praying that Marcel Renteria will get back to 100% health from his Tommy John surgery.
Yeah, Marcel, I would have to say, was one of the people that if we interviewed, I have to say, he's the guy I rooted for the most. I got to be honest. Connor was great. Yeah. Valines was fun. Manny Rodriguez. Yes. Trey Cobb, almost got there. But I would say of everybody we interviewed, the guy that I really wanted to root for the most was Marcel. Because Marcel, we did, I think, like 4 interviews with Marcel. Marcel was like, he always was just generous with his time. Marcel, he really liked us. And, his family still likes my post on Twitter sometimes. I mean, like Marcel was the one guy, like some of these guys, Ernest, I got to be honest, I'm kind of like detached from. But if there was anybody that I would still root for personally, it's Marcel. So I hope Marcel can, find a way to come back out there.
I mean, yeah, it's been a lot of years, man. Shout out to guys I no longer talk to, like Jeff McNeil. I interviewed Jeff McNeil some years ago. We used to talk. Jeff, did you ever? I don't know if he ever put on those Gym Unity sweatpants that I gave to him. But either way, shout out Jeff, man. It was very kind of him in the minors to talk to me.
Conforto, you spoke with Dom Smith. You were close with. I mean, we covered that.
See them. I just kind of saw them. Stephen Valines, to his amazing super mega volleyball star wife.
Yeah, so we did. And she's still playing, I think, in Italy, if I'm not mistaken. And Stephen, we had on. You did a couple of more solo interviews, but I think we interviewed Stephen like 3 times together or something like that. Stephen Valines.
I believe his wife is playing professional volleyball again in the last. She had a baby and then right back to professional volleyball. That's an absolute stud.
And he's like second fiddle to her now because
she was the super athlete, I guess. All along, but we knew that.
True.
Just shout out to everyone, even current Mets guys or no longer Mets guys. Shout out to my guy, Tomas Nido. Love Tomas Nido for a lot of reasons. I love being able to kind of, in a small way, see if I can communicate.
And Guillorme, I mean, we got to mention
Luis Guillorme Jr. and Luis Guillorme Sr., the utmost respect to that amazing family. A few years ago, the family showed up at a holiday event. And Luis Guillorme donated really, really nice stuff to the event for foster kids. So, forever shout out Luis Guillorme and his family for not only.
I hope Luis Guillorme, we see him back in the big leagues this year. I hope we see him.
I'm hoping it's soon. But again, shout out to the Guillorme family because not only did they donate really nice items to foster kids, but they also physically went to the event in South Florida. So that was very kind.
And Mark Decker, I have to shout out Mark Decker because
that was Mark Decker. Shout out Mark Decker from Gym Unity. He's the one who was hosting the events every year. And to have people like Luis Guillorme show up was incredible. But yeah, shout out to everyone who's been a part of this kind of 10-year journey for me. I mean, I would like to keep it going. So if you guys can please help support me to continue to keep this going. I want to try my best for the 2024 season to be part of Sportswire Radio and to provide more content on YouTube. So be on the lookout.
I told you. I would hope to see you before like less than a year from now. I mean, literally,
I'm going to do it. But again, be on the lookout for some interviews on the Mets minor league report. I'll be interviewing up to 2 or 3 pitching prospects in the next couple of months. So be on the lookout for these pitching prospect interview stream that I may have going on right now.
Awesome. Well, we can check all of that here on a number of different platforms, especially Ernest Dove on Twitter at Ernest Dove, YouTube, same account, Instagram, Ernest Dove with a dot this time. You can also check him out on maxmets.blogspot.com. And Max Mets has also been kind of the Bible for Mets information and Mets news. So if you're a fan of the Mets in the big league team or in the minors where Ernest has been, he's had a home really with Max Mets for the better part of a decade. And Mac is also on Twitter himself at John Mackin ADE. I want to support him and make sure that everybody goes out and supports him on those platforms. You can always check us out here. Past, present, and future shows on YouTube at Sportswire Radio 6579. You can also catch Ernest on Ernest Dove at sportswireradio.org. And also, we have a blog on Tumblr at Sportswire Radio. And Ernest, I would even say, if you do have articles reappear on Max Mets, we can actually bring them back onto the Tumblr page because I've reactivated the blog now that we've reactivated the website. So if that's something Mac wants and Mac's cool with that, I would also, repost those articles also onto the blog because I have been certainly working on that and that we've made that a staple. And a lot of people like that. I think the last 2 posts I had on the Tumblr page got something like 900 or 1,000 impressions on Facebook. So people definitely like those. They're clicking the links. And the reason they're clicking all of these links is because of our guest tonight, now the 6th member of the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame, but most importantly, he's the first from our own, from all the team that was with us on the Sports Report days, the SoundCloud days. We were recording on Skype, and it was muffled phone calls through my NCH software app, and then into the British days of Sportnarium when we had that weird name everybody couldn't pronounce it. People would say, "Oh, where are you?" I'm like, Sportnarium.com. And it was Sportnarium.com/player. And people were like, "Well, how do you spell that?" So we obviously graduated from there into where we are today on the worldwide Sportswire Radio at sportswireradio.org. And we're also even going to have another logo to display also in the coming days. So we're working on a lot of new things. I did an invitation for you. Got new lighting. We've got banners. I mean, it's really, Ernest, we've really, I think, come a long way in those 5 years. So I hope to see you more often and just congratulate you really because of you. You are the reason why we're here. So that's why I want to say thank you. And I hope you have a happy new year. And just congratulations again. It's an absolute honor. It's an honor to finally call you officially an honorable Ernest of. And again, I hope you enjoy. Maybe we will think about jackets, rings, but for now, the certificate will have to do.
Thank you so much, man. I'm just happy for every life's moment, my little Buddhist interpretation of life these days. Good, man. Whatever. I'm ready for life's flow going forward.
And one more shout out, Brandon West of West Clothing. I got to give Brandon a big shout out because Brandon's the man. Always follow him on Instagram. And he was another one of our supporters. I want to support Jim Unity, Mark Decker. They've been here with us. And I want to thank your family again for giving us this opportunity to, shared you over the years. And my name is the Reverend Tom Bryce, your voice of all wrestling, the host of the Sports Report, the owner of Sportswire Radio, the #1 global radio station. And here, one of our own, the first from the Sportswire Radio team to be inducted as the 6th member of the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame. Now, the Honorable Ernest Dove. You can catch him on Twitter at Ernest Dove, YouTube at Ernest Dove, Instagram at Ernest.dove, and also on maxmets.blogspot.com. And again, if you're on sportswireradio.org, also on YouTube and Twitter, you'll be going back to your regularly scheduled programming until 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time when I return with DBW and VTW's Chase Wakefield, Aaron Jones' best friend. He's got a lot to say, so tune in for that. But in the meantime, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, on the #1 global radio station. My name is the Reverend Tom Bryce, and thank you and congratulations again to Ernest Dove, finally one of our own, the first from the Sportswire Radio team to be inducted in the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame as the 6th member. I'll see everybody in a little over an hour on Sportswire Radio.